Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
Good morning, Glenn.
Hey, what's up, my brother? How are you, man?
Hey, doing great. How are you?
Just love getting to the coffee shop with you. A couple donuts, a couple coffees.
Yeah, we had some donuts,
Right, I love it, man.
And Mikey runs on Dunkin'.
Hey, I noticed there's a gas station, new gas station they're putting in on the way here. Putting a Dunkin' in it.
I know.
Make it more convenient.
They should be like a sponsor. Well, we don't have sponsors because we don't make any money on this thing.
No, we don't.
We have sponsors, but we don't have sponsors.
No, trust me, I have an AA sponsor. I call him my lighthouse.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
No, totally. So what's going on,
man?
Can
I cut to the? We need to jump right in. I got a table for 3 today, and I know we've only got a half hour. But read her book, and I want to get around right away. So let's get her voice heard.
Her? Her?
I know we got a her.
I know. You know what that does? That takes me back. Hey, first of all, good morning, Jeni.
Yeah, good morning, Jeni.
It takes me back to when we started, right?
Yeah.
And my wife's name's Jeni, and she goes, Glenn, she goes, I'm sure you and Mike do a good job. She goes, but you need women. You know, women aren't going to listen to two old dudes.
Yeah, right.
Like,
just answering back.
So grateful to have Jeni on today.
Yeah, super excited.
Hey, good morning, Jeni.
Super excited. And Jeni, I don't know how we connected. I think somewhere along the line, I don't know, maybe social media. Glenn does the social media. I do the website stuff. And maybe social media, but we came upon your workbook, which is called Sobriety Workbook for Women. We're going to talk about that because
we're going to change that name, maybe.
I read this thing, and I think it's applicable for both sexes. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that debate later, okay? So
I found you guys on TikTok.
Okay. Well,
oh, really cool.
How amazing is that? I mean,
TikTok.
Yeah, how amazing is that? So Jeni, you authored a book. So let's rewind the clock a little bit. Well, I know this came as part of your journey, but tell us a little bit about your journey that inspired you to ultimately write the book. So can you give us a little background on yourself?
Yeah, I have a background in substance abuse, like personally and also professionally. So I've been sober for about 14 years now.
Wow, congratulations.
I keep track of the years.
I know, right?
But, and I am a psychotherapist in private practice and specialize in addiction. I worked in a rehab for my first couple years out of the master's program, a dual diagnosis rehab. And I had a company approach me about writing that book and decided to go with it and share a bit of my story and then also do some research on stuff to write the book.
Right. Well, first of all, I got to say, I have a daughter, Jeni, and she's an overachiever. That's what I call her, tongue in cheek. You're an overachiever. I mean, you got quite a few initials after your last name there, right?
Huh.
No, that's fantastic. So they presented you to write this book. I mean, I think it is so well written. It's called Sobriety Workbook for Women: Practical Strategies to Live and Thrive Without Alcohol, and it can be bought where?
It's everywhere, but if you want to buy it on my website, that's where I get paid for it, basically. On my website, it's JeniMarie.org, JeniMarie.org.
Okay. And I'm going to go wild here. Your middle name? Wait, hold on. Don't say it. I'm going to guess it's Marie. How
Marie,
close am I? Yeah. Oh, look at that. I'm genius, I tell you. I really got some value. I don't know what the way the conversation's going to go, but I got to tell you something. I really got some value out of reading this workbook. And because it wasn't just you pontificating on thoughts of sobriety, why it happens, cultural. There's so many books out there that talk about the pressures and how it's societally, there's so much pressure to drink and all that. But what the book is, and the key word for me was strategies. You have strategies throughout it So we're confronted with the realities. What's the strategy to get us to the other side of that? And that's what I really liked about the book. And then you take it one step further, if that wasn't well enough, to have people write down their thoughts. And Glenn and I have talked about this a lot. I'm a journaler, right? Which is crazy because guys don't journal. Well, I'm telling you, journaling is not just for women.
Yeah.
I'm going to get Glenn to journal at one point.
I've tried it. Never mind.
Okay. So, yes, this is great. So what do you hope to achieve with the book?
I just hope to help people basically get sober and, help their loved ones get sober, and get the word out there about how alcohol is impacting people.
All right, so you clearly have a focus on sobriety and helping people find sobriety. Did you have all the letters behind your name 15, 16, 17 years ago? Or is this a journey that you have picked up, adopted, and kind of a passion or purpose once you found sobriety?
Yeah, I had an undergraduate degree at that time when I got sober, but I didn't get go into the master's program until after I was sober. And then, it takes a little while to get licensed after the master's program.
So was your undergraduate degree in psychotherapy or it
was actually in politics,
okay.
with an emphasis on political theory. So,
all right.
But I took all kinds of classes because there weren't it wasn't a lot of classes that we had to take for that major. So I also took electronic music and art and women's studies, and it was a lot of different stuff.
I love in the book how you talk. Glenn and I are pro sobriety, and you have history with AA, but you also have history with just 12-step in general. You also introduce to the readers of your book other options too, and we think that's so important because here's our theory, and we say it often. People will say, "Well, AA doesn't work." Well, okay, you can't say that because it worked for me, right? It worked for Glenn. So it does work. It just didn't work for you. And I guess we're very pro sobriety because if AA didn't work for whatever reason, for you, don't give up. I mean, there are tools, techniques, other programs. There are other ways to reach sobriety. I've seen it happen with other people who aren't totally engaged in AA. I just know that I needed the discipline that AA offered to drive me to the outcome that I'm living today.
Yeah. I found the 12-step program to be helpful. I actually started with Marijuana Anonymous, which I felt like I was able to identify more with that than going to AA. And I was in Berkeley at the time. So of course I was with all these ex-potheads, hippies and stuff. So I really kind of connected more with that group. But then later, I think when I moved to Long Beach, I went to AA more and also other 12-step programs. But later on, I found the Buddhist recovery programs and found those really helpful too.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just so funny. So a couple things. One is, we've had almost every program.
Yeah, we have
on the podcast, right? But for me, it was hard to fix the problem with the same brain that created it, right? I mean, I tried for 5 years to use all my brilliance to come up with a sober program, and I failed every single time. So I finally had one that I had to surrender to tell me what to do. In fact, that was my point of surrender. I said, I will do anything you tell me to do. Because I just couldn't come up with it anymore. But I love the ones that, I don't mean to mock them here, but it's create your own sobriety program, right? I mean, I tried that; it didn't work,
right? And again, in their defense, if it's working for them, giddy up, right? I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah, but what really happened for me is I had to find a new way to live.
Yes,
that I didn't need to take a drink to escape from, and thank God AA was finally the one that provided that. But it took a lot for me to get out of my ego, to get out and surrender to somebody else, and I I had less accountability when I was 12 than I have today, you know, and I'm like, I need to go back to romper room, you know, and I had to surrender in a lot of different ways.
Right. I noticed also in the book, you don't veer away from, which I see a trend in writing and talking about alcoholism, and it's almost probably because of the stigma, but people don't use the phrase alcoholic much anymore these days, or trying not to. Substance abuse disorder, pick a variable that they use. But your book calls it what it is. It's alcoholic tendencies. I also love the science in your book that talks about what happens in the brain, right, and really kind of lays it out. And I think for me anyway, the big eye opener was when you talk about in the book, when you talk about how the cravings are exaggerated. So for a normal drinker, they're just not, they're taking one drink and it's just not affecting themselves the way that an alcoholic would be affected, where once I have one, I crave the second, I crave the third, I more crave the fourth. So I like the fine balance of science that you used, as well as practical strategies to do something with that information, right? Because it's great to know, right? But now what do I do with what I know, right? So I got dopamines, but what do I do with myself? Because I'm going to have them anyway, right?
Yeah. One thing that I found really helpful is just getting really into health. I think even when I was using, I had gotten really into health and like nutrition and different diets that help you heal from different like chronic conditions and things like that. But I always like kind of went back to, drinking or using drugs even after, doing things like that. But eventually it became so important to me, and also as got trained in yoga, and actually went back. I did 2 different yoga certifications and actually went back. I think I was sober during the second one, and I went back to using after that. So it was definitely helpful, like yoga and mental health, nutrition, looking at those things. But ultimately, what really kicked it into gear, I think, was doing the 12-step program. And then in combination with those things, I don't think I would ever want to go back to something like putting those toxins in my body,
right?
Because I know how they impact us.
It's funny when you mentioned earlier about Buddha. Now, is there a 12-step program based on Buddha?
Yeah, it's not called a 12-step program, but it's very similar to like how AA works or 12-step programs work. But it's a little bit like looser. So they don't have you call yourself an alcoholic or an addict in the program, which I know many people find that really helpful. Many people feel turned off by it, so they prefer that. And then so there's Refuge Recovery is one of them, and then there's Recovery Dharma, and I believe there's also some other ones. There's so many recovery programs now. And the one that I had gone to was Refuge Recovery in the Orange County, California area for a while. They had some meetings there in person, and I know they have online. But what they do, instead of having like reading from a book or somebody sharing, they do meditations at the beginning that are from the Refuge Recovery book. And there are different themes for the meditations. And one of them is like focusing on forgiveness. And so I actually used some of those meditations when I was working at the rehab with some of my clients, and they really appreciated the forgiveness meditations. And so then after you do that meditation for maybe 20 minutes or so, everybody will go around and share after that.
Oh, man, I love that. So that takes me back, and people have stigmas about things, right? So am I correct when I hear the word Buddha, I think of Taoism, right? Right. So I remember back in 2005, my dad, who was a very religious, quote unquote, Christian man, and hey, he lived his faith until the day he died, right? But I had him come stay with me for a month, right? Because I couldn't stay sober. So I'm like, hey, I've never drank in front of my dad. If my dad's here, he'll help me, right? So I remember one night listing a list of like 10 things of ways, insights for living, right? So I go down the list with him, and I'm like, Pops, don't they sound great? He goes, man, they're absolutely amazing. He said, if you lived according to them, you'd live an amazing life. He goes, where'd you find them? I said, oh, it's part of this Taoism reading. He goes, oh no, that stuff's evil.
Yeah, right.
Like, and I'm like, wait a minute.
Until you knew what it was.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute. You just said there are like 10 absolute gems and a way to live.
This is delicious. What's in this
liver?
Oh,
absolutely right, Mike. But it's just people's stigmas. I'm like, when you go from a drinking or drugging or substance filled, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's gambling or sex, love, porn, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And you change to a new way, right? You just got to be. There's just so many stigmas that you got to navigate through. That was hilarious. But I love the Taoism. I mean, that is
it's just
easier, softer way to live.
And it's like AA, the 12 steps. I mean, forget about the first one, but let's just look at the whole structure of AA. Like, I think people, if they would live by the principles and practices of Alcoholics Anonymous, non-alcoholics, their life would be so much better. They wouldn't be all hung up on. I just ended up transformed into a different type of thinker based on the 12 steps, if you really dive into it, if you really do the work. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is your story has relapse in it. And I love the way your book somewhat focuses on, first of all, I like your approach to it. Don't give up. Okay, today's a new day. Start your day again. You could start at 9 in the morning. You could start at noon, whenever. Just start again, right? I love your approach to it. It's not too hard. It's not too soft, right? Because relapse is a real danger, especially if people are aggressive, have aggressive addiction, appetites. They could end up dead, right? So you can't take relapse too lightly. But I love the fact that so much of your book, because relapse is so much a part of most people's stories. It just is. They tried to do the right thing, and then they failed, and they fell off. But those people always impress me the most because they came back. They did the work. They're success stories now, in spite of them. I'm kind of an anomaly because really my first foray into rehab and Alcoholics Anonymous happened in the fall of 2018, and I didn't have that slip. I didn't have that really relapse because I was so concerned about it that I didn't do it. But talk to me how about the book can help those that maybe are struggling with relapse issues right now, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are either fearful that they're going to, so how can the book help, or have just gone through one. More importantly, how can the book help?
Yeah, I think, oftentimes the more material that we ingest that is focused in the direction that we want to go can be really helpful. And I like to call it kind of like brainwashing yourself. So reading books and watching videos, going to meetings, things like that can all be really helpful for just really getting it into our brain and changing our neuro pathways, and getting yourself involved and not just reading the book, but doing the exercises and doing some of the mindfulness exercises in there, and also finding a therapist as one of the recommendations in there, and reading the other books that are recommended in there. So I specialize in trauma as well as addictions. And so trauma is one of the, big things that many people that are alcoholics or addicts have experienced and really has informed. That's how a lot of therapists and trauma therapists see addictions as being rooted in traumatic experiences or difficult experiences that we had in childhood or later on. And that is often why many people go back to using or drinking. And I provide a couple different therapies that are trauma focused, like EMDR therapy and IFS therapy.
Could you define those?
What?
Could you give us the names behind EMDR?
EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And so we use eye movement or tapping. I use tapping a lot with my clients, and it's bilateral stimulation. So it's moving from left to right stimulation, and we can do it with audio too, from left to right. And what it does is it helps to soothe the limbic system. So we'll identify a memory and then a not negative cognition or belief that's associated with that memory, and a positive belief that you would like to associate with it. And then we'll do the tapping until the emotional charge around that memory is reduced. And this has been found to be very helpful for people in helping people get sober. And there's one protocol in particular that I use called Detour protocol that focuses specifically on the triggers for the urge or the addiction. And we do the tapping or bilateral stimulation around that too, and it works well.
That sounds great. The therapist I went to early on when I was still active in addiction, first of all, I wasn't honest with them, right? Mm-hmm. So my psychotherapist, I wasn't honest. Well, how's your drinking habit? Social. At best, stock,
Gee, you wonder why it didn't work, right?
I mean, define social as a fifth a day, a handle a day, whatever. But I like what you just said, because it seems to me that and I know the book talks about psychotherapy, it talks about tools, as you just mentioned, that can be utilized. It also talks a lot about community. You talk a lot about the recovery community. It's peppered throughout the book. Make sure you're plugged into a group of like-minded individuals. I think that's very helpful. Yeah, very helpful.
Yeah, I found reaching out to people to be very helpful. Like, I just kind of got to a point where I would be able to call, I would call a few different people if I wasn't feeling well, and get somebody on the phone. That's just so nice to be able to have that support there.
So, I'm out there, I go to meetings, just connected with a guy last night that we met at a retreat. He just relapsed, right? Before I kind of ask or explore this topic with you, I want to disclose that I was the relapse king. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've relapsed so many times. I've been in over 80 detoxes, rehabs, etc. I just couldn't get it, right? And when I relapsed, I wanted to come back to the rooms, and get coddled, right? Oh, Glenn, it's okay. Great to have you back. We love you. Here's a hug, right? But I have changed. And I'm probably, some people call me harsh. Maybe I call it tough love. But to me, relapse is an absolute fire alarm that something's not going right, Mm-hmm. And I remember, and Mikey and I have gone to too many funerals right. where people relapse, right? Mm-hmm. So I almost want to, when I hear the relapse story, I almost want to get people and shake them. It reminds me of
There's laws against that, by the way.
Yeah, I think that's called assault, right?
Yes.
But we have a buddy, John, in the rooms, and John relapsed. He drove himself to the hospital to get help, and he died in his car in the parking lot, right? So I almost want to shake people and say, look, it should be a fire alarm. So what's your approach to that? How do you handle that when people come to you and say, oh, I relapsed? What's your approach?
Mm-hmm. We just explore the reasons behind, like what was going on that made you relapse, and see if we can work back through that. I know in the book I talk a lot. We kind of use a CBT approach of reframing thoughts, and I have
that's
used
cognitive behavioral therapy.
Right? Yeah, cognitive behavioral therapy. Thank you. I have used that with clients, and I also use EMDR with them. And a lot of clients have found it very helpful when we go through, working on different memories, and that helps to relieve them of these feelings or negative beliefs, things that may trigger them to want to drink. In the realm of IFS, which is internal family system, so it's referring to the family within ourselves, or these different parts within ourselves. they call addictions or firefighters, basically, or their protector parts. So when we are drinking or using drugs, it's a firefighter coming in to protect us from experiencing this exile part, which is a more wounded part, which has been kind of buried, maybe a more vulnerable part that came about in our childhood.
So is that almost like the fight or flight, crock brain type of response?
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a firefighter could also be anger, could be an example of a firefighter protector part coming in and protecting us from feeling maybe a more vulnerable part like shame, known as an exile part in IFS. So yeah, we just really explore those parts and how it feels within the body. And then with IFS, we can do a process called unburdening with the exile parts and talk to them and really kind of gain a more compassionate relationship with them and be able to, really flesh them out and just see where they are. So it's kind of like if you've meditated before in meditation, when we're observing the thought or the feeling rather than totally identifying with it. It's kind of similar to that.
Yeah. So in your practice and in your book, you run across a lot of people where you're part of their success story. How does that make you feel?
Yeah, it's great. It's awesome.
Isn't it awesome? I can kind of see your face. Yeah. I kind of noticed when you were talking about these strategies, I thought that was a good question to ask because you're on the front lines. And I think, to Glenn's question, relapse, I'm more in his camp now. I'm a little... And I need to work on it. I'm a little less tolerant because I know what the I know what the result could be, right? And I know what the benefit could be to following tools, programs, having a program, following a program, using tools, working on your sobriety. I know the rewards to that, and I want that for other people. And it does aggravate me when they just don't get it. Well, guess what? I just didn't get it for years. I just didn't get it,
Yeah.
But I would suggest that. For me, if somebody is so let's talk about the title of the book. Why just for women? Because I read it word for word, read the book, did the exercises, and I didn't. I know at the beginning of the book you say, well, women are different, and well, absolutely, women are different than men. But I found the content to be very helpful for me, regardless of my sexual orientation.
You're a man, right?
Yeah,
I think I am.
I actually didn't personally choose the title. It was the company that I was working with on writing the book. But I do see, that there was some, information that was specifically geared towards women, like marketing towards women.
Yes. Right.
Of alcohol. So, I think they probably chose it for marketing purposes.
Okay.
But
Good. So we both agree a man should buy this book.
Yeah,
yes,
I think it's helpful for anyone trying to get sober.
So give us a parting shot. What do you want the listeners to walk away from our session? Because we gotta scooch in a minute. So what do you want people to remember about Jeni and her book?
I want people to remember to just kind of immerse themselves in materials to support their sobriety and to also look into nutrition and consuming a large amount of fruits and vegetables and how that can be really supportive as well, and looking into recovery programs and maybe a therapist and a therapist that does addiction and trauma therapy. It can be very supportive of people.
So quick question, are you available via Zoom? I mean, can our folks reach out to you via Zoom, or are you strictly in person?
Yeah, no, I see clients online. I'm licensed in Florida, California, and Vermont. And
so the folks have to live there in order to connect with you?
Yeah, they have to live there. And then I can also do coaching with people that are in other states, or I can see people in other countries too.
Yeah. I think we're big in Bangladesh.
We're big in Bangladesh. Can I pay you with Bitcoin?
Yeah, we'll pay you in Bitcoin.
We'll pay you in Bitcoin or some weird new
digital currency.
Right.
I do in-person therapy in Palm Beach County, Florida. So
Great. Jeni, we're going to have your information in the resource room on our website, www.Sober.Coffee, and we'll have your information in the resource room. People can click on there, buy the book right from your website. We thank you so much for sharing this great resource with us this morning and getting up early. We appreciate that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Jeni.
Sounds great. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.